Whoops, that. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be reviewing this gem of a book, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I have had this book in my bag since before I left on my trip across Canada. I picked it up on a whim. I have only read one book by Margaret Atwood, Stone Mattresses, the collection of short stories that she had put out a couple of years ago, and I found it absolutely fabulous. And a little known literary secret about myself: 2 years ago, I got to feed Margaret Atwood. She had come down for the Writers' Festival where I work, and she had come into the restaurant where I cook. So I had fed her, and I was actually too embarrassed and scared to go out and talk to her because I didn't want her to tell me that I was a silly reader, because she's just the most amazing writer ever, and I just don't think I'm worthy of reading her books. So I didn't actually go out and talk to her, but she did make several trips into the restaurant to eat, and I was very happy to serve her her meals. Cook her meals for her. That, I think, was one of my reading bucket list items to check off. She is a writer that I have heard nothing but amazing things, and the one book that I had read has left me in absolute awe of her writing. So when I had seen, I'm not actually sure if this is, I think this is a new series, like book set they're setting out, because I didn't notice this, but my daughter pointed it out to me. Each of her books is a part of a person. Now, I have The Blind Assassin. I have not read it. And I have The Heart Goes Last, but I have not read that one either. I picked those both up last year and just haven't gotten around to reading them. So now I need to get the bottom two to complete this section of books. But I picked this one up just on a lark when I was out shopping one day. It was sitting on the stand of recommended reads. So I grabbed it, and I just finished reading it yesterday. I was down with a migraine, and part of my recuperation was just lying in a bed, couch, and finishing up this book in silence, which was amazing. So this book is absolutely fantastic. When I first started reading this book, I know the reviews had been kind of like this book is a dystopian book, but it was written in 1985. So I wasn't too sure going into it how relevant it would be today, despite the fact that most reviews of this book state that this is a scary glimpse into a near future for our generation, for our world. And I thought, a book written in 1985 does not sound like it would be able to come close to what the world is like now. I didn't think that this book would even touch on any of the subjects. I mean, we're talking 22 years ago? That was wrong. 32 years ago. Oh my God. I'm so old. This book is 32 years old, and I just didn't see how it could have the relevancy of today. But boy, I was surprised. I can't even express the sheer shock of how close this book touches on today's issues. So this book follows a woman who goes by the name of Offred. And this is not her real name. This is the name that she was given as a handmaiden. And a handmaiden, as it turns out, is a woman who is sent to a family to bear children when the family's wife cannot bear children for whatever reason. It's strange, though, in this world because they don't believe that it's ever the man's fault. It's always the woman's fault. So if the wife isn't having children and the handmaiden isn't having children, it's their fault, not his fault. This book touches a lot on feminism and how this society has changed to... I'm going to put this book down. It's hard to talk with a book in my hand. This book touched on how society changed to protect women, that when they were talking about women going out and dating or getting catcalled or epidemics of what they were calling rape, that the women needed to be protected. And at this one point in the story, as she's reflecting back, they're talking about how there was a mass killing of the government and everything was suspended. So women were almost cut off from the ability to survive on their own. They required a man. They were no longer allowed to work. They were no longer allowed to have money. They had no say in anything. And the world reorganized itself around this premises. There is a quote that starts off the book. So it comes from the Bible, Genesis 31-3. And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, Am I in God's stead, who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? And she said, Behold, my maid Bilhah, go unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. The premises of this book is that after this occurrence with the government and everybody going back almost to a Puritan state, and they lived by the Bible, and everything was very regulated by the government. Like I said, women were controlled by men, although they stouted this belief to the women that they were actually being protected by men, that they were being protected in this society. I, by no means, know a lot about 1985. I don't know a lot, like they talk about rallies for abortion and protecting women and stuff. I don't know a lot about that. I don't know a lot about feminism, so for me to speak on that is a difficult situation for me because I've never experienced anything where I have been held back because I'm a female. I've never experienced this situation. So for me to say I'm a card-carrying feminist and I totally understand what was going on or anything like that would be kind of hypocritical for me to say because I don't actually know that I've never experienced it. And I can't come from it from that point of view. This book, though, was a huge eye-opener. Despite the fact that it was written 32 years ago, it does talk about nuclear weapons and toxic waste, and all the things that are actually quite relevant to us today are touched upon in this book. In this society, women weren't breeding as well, and the number of Caucasian births was on a decline due to the fact that we've had so many toxic waste spills and nuclear reactor meltdowns, that there's so much toxicity in the environment that people were actually being affected by this, and our race was declining, and they needed to boost our race back up. So all of this kind of worked hand in hand. And this book was just, it was so beautifully written. And the best part, because as you're reading it, you're kind of like, you're back and forth between past and present. with this character of Offred. And the end, the epilogue, is where it ties it all up just so interestingly that I I was actually more in love with the ending than the full book. But once you read the ending, it kind of tied the full book just so nicely back together that all of it just Margaret Atwood, you're just such a genius. I adore this woman and how she writes and how even though her it seems disjointed, it all pulls in together to complete this actual story for you. So I highly recommend you pick up The Handmaid's Tale. It is being turned into a TV series. I'm not sure on what channel. I don't have cable, so I couldn't say for sure. I thought it was Stars, but I could be way off course. I'm going to be intrigued to see how this gets turned onto TV. I don't always appreciate books when they get put into TV series. I think they tend to miss a lot of the subliminalness of a story, and they kind of just smack you in the head with it. They tend to just put it so over the top to force people to get what it's trying to say, as opposed to letting people, much like the writer has done, come to the conclusions and reach the ending as you're supposed to. So I'm really interested to see how this is going to pan out into a TV series. But as for the book, it's absolutely fantastic, and I would highly recommend it to anybody to read. This one I would actually give a 5 out of 5 stars. I can't express my love of Margaret Atwood's writing enough. She is a writer that always compels me to be a better reader. So I once again have quite enjoyed this story. So if you've read The Handmaid's Tale, let me know what you thought of it. If you liked it, if you didn't like it. Like I said, I'm really anticipating the TV series, but it could be forever before I see it because, honest to God, I really don't watch TV, and I get so bored with trying to keep up a series that I could be another 2 years before I actually catch it. But that's it for this review. I've rambled on long enough once again. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.